Obviously, the big story of the day is James Craig. Very odd timing here, a couple months away from the season, and in a group where, like one of the greatest strengths, if you're talking about offensive line, the greatest strength of this group going into the season was a complete and total continuity. You had all your starters returning. You had your coach returning for the fourth year. So you think about a group that is very senior laden, and maybe unless you're like Liam Shanahan and you're a transfer, you would have been with this guy pretty much your entire career at LSU. And so now, 2 months before the season starts, to have that all kind of ripped out from under you, and now you got to start a new relationship with a new coach, and they got to get up to speed fast. It's been disappointing. I'm sure the players are pretty upset by it. Maybe it's actually a bit of a shadow advantage to whoever the new coach is, that there is so much continuity, because they can walk in and not have to make like too many decisions, although they will view guys differently, and maybe they do end up landing in different places than Craig was on certain guys. But I don't know that there's no way to frame this as a positive in my mind. Like this is not good news. It's just it's adversity that you're going to have to fight through and try to not let affect you too much.
And you still have some time, but it's getting real close to what do you do, because obviously you got to have him in place as soon as possible because of what you mentioned, recruits coming in like today.
Yeah, Will Campbell's in town
recruits
today.
will be here, and so you've got to find someone that fits your scheme, someone that fits your philosophies, and to me, it does feel like go get someone who has some type of ties to either Louisiana, Baton Rouge, or LSU. Because we mentioned Ole Miss, when Randy Clements was let go, they went to Gardner Webb to get the guy. And I'm not hating on Gardner Webb. I don't even know who the coach was, but that's where they went. You have an opportunity to go get someone that does have some ties here, because it this late in the game, it feels like that would be maybe a little bit easier to convince someone.
So you're valuing, you're placing your thumb on the scale for the ties because you think that you'll have a better chance of enticing that person this late in the game
leave this
to come
late
here?
in the game. Now it's still LSU, and LSU's not Ole Miss. Ole Miss, goes to Gardner Webb. LSU can still, because of who they are, they might can go poach whoever they want to go poach. It depends on how much they want to, pay him or whatever it might be. But I'm just thinking, to get the coach in here the fastest, and you can go get someone who is qualified to be here, but to go get the coach that can get here the fastest, can talk to the recruits, can sell LSU because he already has an idea of who they are, it feels like that would be a move that possibly could make things a little bit better.
I don't know if I care so much about having ties to LSU, though. Like, my favorite name in the process that I'm completely biased towards, I do not think you get the job, would be Ben Wilkinson. We can discuss that more later. That's just my own personal experience working with Ben and knowing the value that he gave me as an O-line coach. But no, I don't know if I care about having ties to LSU. I do.
I'm not saying that I care. I'm talking about, I think maybe that could get someone here quicker that already knows LSU and how to sell it, because you're opening recruiting back up after being such a long dead period. Like, they would know how to sell LSU.
Yeah, I guess the attractiveness of I would also say this, though, in that front, because I agree with you. I think you do put your thumb on the scale for a recruiter, right? Because if there is one thing about James Craig that actually did leave a bit to be desired, is that the recruiting was not the best, and it was very up and down, and you had some pretty significant misses therein. So, like, I don't know that I feel like a coach who has made his career, like, you can drop Ed Ogeron in any school, give him 2 weeks, a week, and he can start to sell that place pretty effectively, right? So if you bring in one of those guys that's kind of built his career on recruiting, like, you can drop him in, and if that's his best skill set, he can go ahead, because there's a lot to sell, obviously, right? In terms of the facilities, the team, et cetera, et cetera. It's another reason why. So let's talk about the attractiveness of LSU, because I could be a bit of two minds. On one hand, you have a recent national championship. You have an administration that is fully committed to investing, giving you the resources you need. You have excellent facilities. You got a very experienced laden O-line that you're bringing back. So you kind of walk in and you teach a bunch of guys that are already salty vets. And they're going to pay you. James Craig was making $700K, was going to make $700K this year. Like, that's maybe just the bottom line thing, right? That's all very attractive. maybe the cons against it would be there has been a lot of turnover lately with the Craig news. You're now looking at 4 assistants remaining from last year's 2020 staff. So that's maybe a bit of red flag. And even the overall Orgeron tenure right now is in an interesting spot where there's just a ton of pressure on this year to get back to 9-3, 10-2. And if you aren't able to do that, well, then, I mean, the hot seat immediately, those conversations start to begin in earnest. Now maybe those conversations go on everywhere, and so you're like, I don't really care about that. But I do think just kind of putting on the balance sheet right there that the pros laid out do outweigh the cons. So I still think it's a very attractive job where at the end of the day, they should be able to poach a bigger name than the timing would dictate.
All right, so as we go through like a list of possible candidates, obviously you mentioned Ben, and his name's going to come up. Kevin Mawae's name's going to come up, and Kevin even put, I think it was on Twitter last night, a GIF of someone pointing to a Colts logo on a shirt to kind of say like, "Hey,
that's what I say. He's
I'm
in the
with
NFL now. I think he's chilling. Probably.
And look, Kevin. No, I don't think anybody loves LSU as much as Kevin Mawae. I mean, he follows softball, football, baseball. I mean, he follows it all still, even when he was at Arizona State. But him putting that out there, is it ironclad that he wouldn't come? No, we don't know any of that. But so there's going to be some names thrown around there. We mentioned maybe ties with Louisiana, Baton Rouge. I know Brad Davis at Arkansas. He played at Bel Air, so he's from Baton Rouge. He coached at Southern Lab School, so he's had experience coaching at the high school ranks here. Played at Oklahoma. So those are some of the names that you're probably going to hear. Again, ties to Baton Rouge, ties to Louisiana, that they already kind of know what they're getting into and how to sell it as soon as they get here.
Yeah, the only thing on the Wilkerson front, and I just don't think it's going to happen because I think they're going to want someone with more history in recruiting, like I said. But I mean, look, on that just to go back to 2011, Ben was the assistant O-line coach under Stud, but he was really the reason why that O-line took such strides from 09 to 10 and then into 11. He was the guy that taught us all the technique. He was the guy that worked with us the majority of the offseason. And so just in my, personal experience, the actual technical knowledge that he had, along with the kind of mentorship part of coaching as well, where he's helping you out in dealing with situations which you're frustrated, which you have questions, helping out with life. I thought Ben was just the best coach that I ever had in that regard. That said, I just think that LSU fans are going to demand someone with a little bit more of a resume. And if we know how Woodward hires, he's obviously going to target people that have the most impressive resumes. So we'll see where it goes.
Another name inside the chat, Rob Sale. Rob played at LSU, is from Neville. Obviously, there's a connection there with a big-time offensive lineman recruit that we talked about. He has been the offensive line coach at Georgia, at UL Monroe, Arizona State. He was the offensive coordinator and the O-line coach at ULL for the last 3 seasons. He's now the New York Giants offensive line coach. So there's names out there that would be qualified to take this job, again, that have ties to the area, that would be able to hit the ground running. So it's not a great situation like you laid out. Like this timing, we're in June, and you're looking for a new coach. We're not going to try to spin this as a positive, but you do have qualified candidates that I think if you offer them the job would run at the chance to be able to be at LSU, a place they're familiar with, and you would be able to absorb some of that loss that hiring a new coach in June kind of hits you with.
Yeah, definitely feel for the boys too. It sucks to lose your coach you've had for 4 years, 2 months before you're about to go once more into the fray. So
we'll your second day in a row to go into the fray.
I use it all the time. It just is that it's just a beautiful poem, and it just stuck with me. Right? It's the ultimate grit your teeth and let's charge ahead into it. All right, when we get back, let's grit our teeth and let's masticate as we get ready for a munchie section with masticates, chewing. Okay. As we get ready for our munchie section with Chef Michael Johnson, get your questions to the YouTube chat, #munchies, and we'll answer them next.